Hello everybody, here we are today and we're going to be talking about the Calgary Flames and whether or not they've thrown in the towel for their season. So before we start talking about the Flames, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So Calgary is a side that has been a relative regular in the playoffs for a while now. They've had some really good years, and then they've had some other years where maybe they would follow it up where they didn't perform the way they wanted, but either way, they're probably usually in or around the playoff talk. Last year, they were in that situation again. They played the Winnipeg Jets late in the year, and I don't know if that game eliminated them. Either way, they fell up just short of making it to the playoffs as the final wild card spot as the Jets were able to claim it. And again, going into this season with hopes of a turnaround, a lot of talk was made about can Calgary get back to the playoffs. Unfortunately, at the moment, things don't really look like a lock, as they have 49 points in 49 games played and sit 5 points back of a playoff spot. On top of that, too, they just traded Elias Lindholm to the Vancouver Canucks, kind of sparking some talk about is this team, throwing in the towel early for the season, I guess, which I just talked about in the title. I don't necessarily think that it guarantees in this because you look at this and realize they're getting a guy in Kuzmenko that could help them out right away, and they are getting some assets for the future. And while one player plays a key role for you with Lindholm playing more minutes than any forward for the team this season, and you do need to fill his absence, it doesn't necessarily mean that your team is done for. If Lindholm was going to be the make or break for you at the start of the year, that is a little problematic. I mean, it would make sense for any team to say we don't want to lose one of our better players, but you should not be a one-man team in the NHL. That's just not how hockey works. And I think a big thing, too, why you can't really throw the towel in necessarily for Calgary right now is the fact that some other teams that their season didn't really look that promising at the time has been turned around a bit by some winning streaks. And while they aren't guaranteed playoff spots, teams like Seattle, teams like St. Louis that have had good runs over the course of the season have been able to revive their playoff hopes as of late. St. Louis just had a recent 5-game win streak where they were able to push themselves into a wild card spot where it looked like they weren't going to make it. Now, the unfortunate thing for Calgary is I looked at Tankathon.com. They do have the 12th hardest remaining strength of schedule in the league. But the good news for Calgary fans, if they are feeling optimistic and hopeful here, is the fact that they have 3 games coming up against the Sharks, through the final stretch of the year, and then 2 games against the Anaheim Ducks. Now, you can't really go out there and say, we're going to win every game, and we're going to beat all these bad teams. However, if you do end up sweeping all those teams, you have 6 out of 6 points against San Jose, and then you have 4 out of 4 points against Anaheim. 10 points in the bank would certainly go a long way in helping this team try to get to the playoffs. I mean, look at a team like their provincial rivals, the Edmonton Oilers. A hot winning streak certainly helped their odds of making the playoffs, not only making the playoffs as a wild card, but probably finishing top 3 in their division. Now, switching back to more of that negative side, unfortunately, their next 10 games don't really look like they're super easy, and I think those 10 games decide whether or not they make the playoffs. They play Boston, they play Edmonton, I believe they play Winnipeg in that stretch as well. And they play other teams that are in or around the playoff spot as a wild card or maybe like third in their division. Those teams just aren't going to say, well, Calgary, they were really hoping to make the playoffs this year, so we got to give them some free points. They're going to say, we have to beat Calgary while we can and just try to get 2 points every single game possible. So there aren't going to be really any teams doing them favors over their next 10 games. And if things go poorly, I'd hate to say that you stick a fork in them, but it really could say that they're done at this point. Now, again, I don't really think that this team offensively fills me with a lot of confidence. Blake Coleman should not be your leading guy for points by the end of the season. But at the same time, too, I don't think that Craig Conroy just said with this Lindholm trade, we're done, we're not trying to compete. There are still like 35 games left for the Flames to try to go up and make some ground. When you're 5 points back with, again, nearly half the season left, there's still reason to be somewhat optimistic, I guess. And while I personally don't think the Flames will make the playoffs, do I really think that they're throwing in the towel? And was this all centered into the Lindholm trade? No, I don't think that at all. I think with Conroy, it's about trying to make yourself better in the now, but also in the future. With that Lindholm deal that we talked about, they got prospects. One of them could be very promising. They got Kuzmenko that nearly scored 40 goals last year, and they have a future first-round pick. And I talked about that in the Who Won the Lindholm trade. I'll put that towards the end of this video if you want to check that out. And for the Flames, they have to be able to get some talent if guys are going to leave. Lindholm was a free agent, so who's to say, like I said in that other video, he didn't go up there and leave. So Conroy ended up getting first round pick, possibly a third round pick as well, with a Kuzmenko that is maybe going to be able to revitalize things a little bit. So while it might feel like we're losing a guy in Lindholm that is going to play a lot of minutes for us and be a better player for us, it just is so painful to watch. The reality is Conroy's playing the now and the future. So the Flames are in a spot where destiny lies in their hands. They are not so far back where they're San Jose, where there's no hope. They just got to go out there, put their heads down, and make something happen. Now, is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. Nobody gives you handouts in the NHL, like I talked about early in this video. And for the Flames, they are just going to have to find a way to make things happen. Do I think that we see a world where maybe something goes well for them and they miss out on a wildcard spot yet again? I do. And what happens in the offseason with this team, the direction that Craig's going to try to take the team, I couldn't particularly tell you right now, but I don't want Calgary fans to just say, you know, I'm going to turn off the TV. I'm not watching my team just because they're going to have a bad year. Now, the good news is I don't think fans are like that, especially Calgary fans. It is a Canadian team. This is a team that gets a lot of love from the city, so they're going to be there. They're just going to suffer in silence. If they do make the playoffs, probably won't be silenced, because what fan base is actually silent when they're suffering anymore in the social media age? But yeah, so Calgary, best of luck to you. Hopefully you can make something out of this and get on a heater and maybe catch fire, if you will. And maybe, just maybe, make the playoffs yet again. But anyway, what are your thoughts on Calgary right now? Do you feel like the season's really over for them? And if that's the case, I feel like some other teams are kind of thrown in the mix, which I don't necessarily think is true. But let me know all that stuff down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.